So I put a post up on my Instagram story today just asking you guys what I should do for this episode, what topic I should make it about. And a lot of people said that I should talk about my failures and mistakes that I made throughout the course of my business. So I look back on all the 5 years that I've been in business and started writing down mistakes and failures and setbacks. I just went one by one, and I was expecting to have like 7 that I could think of, but as I started to get into it and as I started to remember things and recall things and be like, oh, I used to do this and I realized that I can't do that, so now I do this. I ended up having a massive laundry list full of things mistakes I've made and things that I did then that I would certainly never do today, and money that I've lost and reasons why I've lost it and all these things. And I just completely caught myself off guard because I couldn't remember that, or I didn't realize that I'd made so many mistakes and done so many things. So I'm not going to do an episode on that today because that will genuinely be like an hour long. So what I've decided to do is I've decided to make that a different episode because that's a can of worms that I just don't have time to get into right now. But it's actually a really good exercise getting into all of that because, it didn't really occur to me how many things I had to go through to get to where I am now, how many setbacks and mistakes I had to make to get here. So really good exercise. I've already got like 30 something things written down, and I was still going, but I was like, I just need to record an episode and get it out because it's Tuesday and I post every Wednesday. So I had to leave it there. I'm probably going to end up with like 100 different mistakes and setbacks and stuff. So that'll be a really long episode, and it will certainly be full of value as well. But one thing I realized is it's all necessary. Like all of these mistakes, all of these setbacks were necessary in teaching me right from wrong, in growing myself as a person, not only as a business owner, but just as a person. My personality has shifted a lot. My demeanor has shifted. The way I act and the way I interact with people in the world has changed. And it all kind of goes back to these failures and a lot of these mistakes I made. So very, very necessary. And even though at the time when all of these things were happening and it felt like the world was caving in on me, it was all preparing me for what I have and what I am today. So whatever setbacks you've had, I don't know, whatever things that keep you up at night and things that you regret and you dwell on, just bear that thought. Realize that one day you're going to look back on it as I am now and realize that it was completely necessary to get you to where you are now. And without those mistakes and without those failures and without those lessons learned, you simply would not grow. The only reason we have growth is because we have failure, is because things break down. The way your muscles grow in the gym is because you beat them until they're worn and then they rest and they rebuild and recuperate and grow back stronger. Same with ourselves, same with our businesses. So yeah, it was a bit humbling as well, just realizing all the different dumb things I've done and all the little things along the way. So yeah, that's going to be the next episode, I guess, when I find like an hour or two to sit down and hash all of that out. So I'm going to write down a whole list and just go through things one by one. That's going to be cool. But today I figured I'd just do a nice quick one again and talk about something that I think a lot of people are struggling with. I know it's something that I struggle with as well. And it's that the notion of people either put 100% into sales or they put it into service. And rarely is it ever both. And what I mean by that is, going back to when I started my business, I put 100% of my effort into service. Like I was so hell-bent on just being good at the thing and just wanting people to appreciate what I do and wanting people to just be satisfied. I didn't even care about how many clients I had. I just wanted the clients I had to be over the moon with the service. So cleaning was the most important thing for me. I wanted to get really good at it. I was really geeking out on products. I wanted to find the best products. I wanted to learn how to use them correctly. And I really went above and beyond for my clients. And then as I started to grow the business, slowly but surely, as I started to make more money, I started to care less about the service and more about sales. I cared more about marketing and the numbers and just driving more revenue. So I started to put more of my effort and more of my, I just dropped something on my desk, more of my effort and more of my energy into sales as opposed to service. And fast forward to now, it's It's hard to say exactly because I've got so many different people involved now and there's multiple layers of management, but we're still very much focused on sales. We're not a very balanced in the sense that we put the same amount of effort and energy into sales as we do into service. And so I think a lot of people are in that boat as well, where you're either one or the other. It's never really both. And if we look at our business as a funnel, a lot of people think funnel like sales funnel, like, oh, you get someone who knows nothing about your business to then coming in, turning into a lead, turning into a prospect that then buys. And when they buy, that's the bottom of the funnel. Okay. When we look at our business as a funnel, we need to think of the bottom of the funnel as that customer leaving or churning. And so when you look at it that way, you identify all these other constraints within the funnel or within the business that you then need to solve. Because most people look at it like a sales funnel. Like if there's constraints, it's to do with sales. And what do you do when there's a constraint with a sales funnel? Well, you go back and fix it. You identify the problem and you fix it. You should be doing the same thing with the whole business. It shouldn't just be sales. It should be the whole business inside that funnel. So the top of that funnel is that person knowing nothing about you. Middle of the funnel is where the old bottom of the funnel is. That's where the prospect becomes a customer. But then the bottom of the funnel is now that customer leaving. So what things do you have to do between the middle of that funnel and the bottom differently? It's interesting when you think about it like that, because with that frame and with that way of thinking, the only issue that you need to solve is then service. It's not about sales. It's not about how to fix the bottom of a sales funnel. It's how to improve the service so that the customer doesn't want to go elsewhere. I listened to a podcast from Alex Hormozy once, and he said that it's really easy to get to $1 million a year in a business with a not so great product or service. But when you get to $1 million a year, the only thing that matters is that product or service. The service has to be good. The product has to work. It has to do what it says. It has to be functional. Because when you get to that point, nothing else really matters. Your marketing and sales doesn't matter because the churn of having a bad product or service will far outweigh all of the new customers that you can bring in. So there comes a tipping point where that service outweighs the sales. The scales start to tip the other way. And so I say this to remind you that good marketing is only going to get you so far. It's what I'm working on now. I've got the 7-figure business and now we're really doubling down on service and we're trying to make that as good as we possibly can. We've kind of shot ourselves in the foot by doing this because it's a lot harder to make changes to a service when you've already grown past $1 million, when you've already got dozens of staff. It's harder to make those changes. So learn from me. Get the service down pat before you scale fast. It's a lot easier to do it in the early stages. And it's things like fixing customer churn is really simple. It's tough, but it's simple. And so, having the loyalty programs, if you want to go down that route, having referral incentives, having feedback loops. There's something called a net promoter score, which is where you can measure customer loyalty to predict churn risks so that you can keep up with that churn and counteract that and figure out what you need to do in the event of people leaving or how to prevent that. You can do, like I said, surveys and reviews. So surveying is something that we're getting into now, especially with our staff. We're doing anonymous feedback systems for our staff. We're also going to start doing the same thing for customers. We want the customers to feel heard just as much as staff want to feel heard in their role. So if customers want to have a platform where they can voice their opinion, and a lot of the time they want to do it in a way where it's not going to get back to the cleaner. That's something we've heard a lot. The customers don't want the cleaner to find out that they've complained. So anonymous feedback systems are really good. The net promoter score is really important to keep up with the churn because same with employees, I'm sure you've heard, it's much easier and cheaper to retain a staff member than it is to go out and hire a new one. Same thing with customers. It's a lot easier to keep a customer than to go out and fight for a new one in the sea of all the other businesses. So if you want an easy life and an easy business, especially when you get to a certain point, if you grow your business with this in mind and you do the right things, as I'm saying, when you get to $1 million a year and beyond, everything will be so much easier. Focus on the service. Double down on it. Don't worry about growing fast. If you grow fast, you encounter the problems that come with growing fast. As I've experienced, you get bad churn, you get bad feedback and bad feedback loops where it's going to bring your brand down because you get bad reviews and all this other stuff. Where it's like, if you just focused on growing slowly and steadily and focusing on the service as opposed to sales, putting more of your effort into that, you will achieve a much more positive net outcome than the inverse. So yeah, that's my whole point. Just think of your business as a funnel, not like a sales funnel where you're trying to get someone from not knowing anything about your business to then buying from you and becoming a customer, and the end of that funnel being that person turning into a customer. Instead, think of your business as a funnel in the sense that the bottom of that funnel is the customer leaving. So the middle of funnel, or the old end of funnel, now becomes the middle of funnel, and you have a new end of the funnel, which is that customer leaving. And so everything between the middle and the end, you now need to work on. Think of all the constraints that come with that middle to end funnel, with that customer leaving. Now, how do you fix those constraints? How can you eliminate those constraints? What things can you do to increase the longevity of a client, to reduce churn? It's things like feedback. It's things like loyalty systems, referral systems, constant quality checks, just following up with them on the phone or emailing them and seeing how they're going. And calculate your churn rate now so that you can have a baseline that you can compare to months or years down the track. Because it's a lot easier to grow a business when you have a low churn rate as opposed to a high one. If your churn rate is 20 to 25%, you're going to really struggle to get to 7 figures and beyond, or even high 6 figures. Whereas if you can keep that churn rate, less than 10%, you're going to have a really, really good time. So think about your business like that funnel. The end of funnel is now the customer leaving. It's not just getting the customer. So now we have to look at it with a whole new lens. There's going to be a lot more constraints that we have to think about. It's not just like objection handling and, what do I do when the customer says this in a quote? And we need to see with a bit more foresight, because this unfortunately comes from someone who has regrettably scaled too fast and done the wrong things and now has to kind of pick up the pieces and double down on service and figure things out and get back on top of quality, because the sales was good, but we were putting 100% into sales and not into service. So rarely do people do both. You should try to make sure that you don't compromise on that. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about today. Really simple, but it's just something I was thinking about. And I think it's something that we need to really be more conscious of. And yeah, it's something I wish I thought about a bit more before, but I'm only human and this is my first time doing this, and yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here. So with that being said, let's look at our business as a funnel, not just to acquire a customer, but that funnel now includes that customer's exit from the business. So what are the constraints we can identify and how do we eliminate or fix those constraints? All right. Thanks for listening to another episode. Tune in next week. I'll talk about all the failures, mistakes, setbacks, and lessons learned from my journey over the last 5 years of starting and growing this cleaning business of mine. So that's going to be a really good episode. Just thinking about it now, it's probably going to go for over an hour. So yeah, that'll be good. We'll take a trip down memory lane and relive some of the traumas of my late teenage years. So that'll be a fun one. And I'll talk to you then. So bye for now.